Hello, my friend. Do you want our planet to be healthy? If that's true for you, write healthy planet in the chat below this video. Do you also love it when technology advances and our lives become easier and more connected because of technology? Right? Yay, technology in the chat if that is true for you. Do you also love having opportunities for our creativity to be cultivated, created, and shared? Type creativity in the comments if you love having creativity in your life. Here's the thing, creativity can also destroy things in the process. We could look at it as destroying, or we could look at it as transferring, altering, recreating, shifting from one to the other. But these are true things that happen. When we build a building, we are disrupting the land that was underneath there, whatever plants, whatever insects were living there, right? They're all going to lose their life. If we build a bridge over water and we're putting poles into the water, we're creating disruption for the whole ecosystem in the water, right? There's many things that we've been doing to move water into the cities, but that impacts salmon's ability to swim upstream. The building that we do also at the ocean's edges affects the ocean. And what does that affect the coral reefs? And what do the coral reefs do? I mean, there's so much food and growth, and the coral reefs protect the land there from having as rough waters going to the edge of the land. Now, here's another one. We create food, like we have made up, right? New technology with food, and it is also dehydrated, and there's preservatives added to it so that that creative aspect, right, the creation that was made can last longer, more can be made, and it's easier for it to sit on the shelves longer in stores or in our homes. And those things have been tied with health issues. So these are our examples of where creation can also create destruction in the same process that we probably don't want, right? That we really don't like. The first point I want to make out of three is to focus on the recreation aspect. But how are we going to recreate so that we don't destroy and make things worse, but instead we're making things better, or at least keeping it the same? But I'd like to say it's getting better because we're creating advancements to our lifestyles. And I want to say this too, that we have to decide too where we're going to draw the line, because every time that you walk outside, you're probably stepping on an ant or an insect, right? But you're not going to stop moving about this world. So we have to figure out how to live our lives with the minimal amount of destruction, right? If you did see an ant where you're going to step, most of us are not going to step there, right? We don't want to kill other things, especially when there isn't a reason to and we can step around it. And a lot of people already do this. When they create buildings, they replant trees. And I think IKEA might be a company that actually pays attention to that too. So look into that. But there are some big companies that can consider where they're putting their huge buildings and what they can do with those trees, or plant new trees elsewhere. Because what do trees do to our air and to the environment, right? It's very important that we really keep the same number of trees and make more trees so that we can breathe more easily. And the coral reefs, you might not know this, but there's actually a way to rebuild coral reefs. I saw a whole documentary on this. It's really, really fascinating. So there are a lot of advancements coming out there as to how we can recreate whatever we might be impacting when we're creating something new. And I feel that it's very important for us to keep that in mind and to be creating with a sense of consciousness. So, consciousness is really the second point and the thing to think about here. But just an example of consciousness. This is kind of a fun story. I'm going to take a sip of water while we do that so that my body could keep recreating itself. I lost my voice a little bit on a roller coaster, so it's good to refresh it. But here's the thing. So I was living in a yoga community out in the woods in California, and there were these wild turkeys. The wild turkeys posed a threat in potentially killing little kids, potentially impacting some of the other farm animals that we had. And we went through a lot of things to figure out how to live harmoniously with the turkeys. And we couldn't figure out how to live with them. I mean, I remember one time when I went home, they were all in between I had a golf cart because it was just a small community. So they were in between my golf, and it was more economical to have a golf cart. So I had a golf cart that was electronic, and they were in between my golf cart and my home on the pathway there. And I thought maybe I'll just scare them away with the golf cart. It was the funniest thing because we just ran in circles around a tree. Somehow I got them out of the way and I was able to safely get out of the golf cart and go into my home. But these are some of the things that were happening, and it was going to cost like way too much money to have like some animal protection come in and take the wild turkeys out of there. And finally, we found out that if we murdered the alpha turkey, that the rest would leave. It sounds really sad. But basically, we didn't hunt, we didn't eat animals. So we had some local hunters come in who knew what they were doing and would be able to kill the turkey with the least amount of pain. So that's the first area where consciousness went in. The second thing was all of us in the community were praying over the turkey. And this it makes me want to cry when I think about it because it got so much love in the process of leaving this world. And it did solve the issue that we were having. So we created a safer place for all of us to live through destroying something, right? A life in the process. But there was a lot of consciousness and love and intention that went into that. So I didn't feel as bad about it. I still didn't like it, but I didn't see what the alternative was. And that's what we were all facing. This is a more extreme example, right? But this is the way to think about how can we put greater consciousness into what we're doing. Because it's more important that everything is a vibrational match also than necessarily specifically what is happening. Everything is minimized down to vibration because everything is made of energy. What is energy? It's these vibrational frequency waves. I already mentioned the word for the third point, which is harmony. And I'll explain this in another example. And the spiritual teacher at this community, the founder of it, he envisioned this beautiful dome it was sort of at the top of this hillside that had a very narrow, deep valley with a river at the bottom. And so you could see the mountains coming up on the other side as well. It was beautiful. And this dome, he was going to live there, but it was also a meeting place for many people to gather. And part of this vision was to plant over 10,000 tulips at the hillside for many people to enjoy the beauty. But the question came into the building. How many trees do we have to cut down in order, one, to build the building, and two, to have a clear space? Because we needed some space that we could gather outside. We needed some space that we could enjoy the vista as well. And when people were complaining about the trees that were going to be cut down, he said, and this is a little more woo-woo, but it was tuning into the trees to say they're actually happy that this is happening. So I want you to imagine here that this is another way that recreation happens, where the trees are no longer going to be this living structure in that spot. Right? They're going to go on to their next form as when trees dies and mushrooms develop, right? There's all sorts of other things that grow off of dead trees. But it was also going to create this space that was going to create beauty and create connection and inspiration for a lot of people. But the key was to be in harmony with nature. The turkey that was also murdered in the community, like we had to create harmony with the turkey to the best that we could. I suppose if we were really good at harmony, right, we would have created enough harmony that the turkeys would have left. So maybe that's like a goal for our intention. But I truly believe in the theories that Gandhi had, which is that peace can overcome war, that peace can keep our planet healthy. But yes, we need to keep working on increasing our ability to do it. There's a little piece that you can experiment with in your life in the essence of peace, because love, I believe, is another feeling connected with peace. And when you are feeling victimized by a situation, when you are feeling hurt by someone or something else, send it love. Not that you love what it's doing, not that you like it, not that you're condoning it, but that you want to feel love inside. And you want your body to be empowered. And just with this experiment, notice the difference of how you feel when you allow yourself to feel like you're being attacked, right? Like there's toxic energy around you that's harming you. Versus how do you feel when you send love out? There is no room for any of that harm to come into our own selves when we're sending love out. What else happens when we're sending love out? We're not continuing to perpetuate the drama and the challenge that is happening. I had Maureen Bell. She was over at my home. She's in the last chapter of my book, Healing Happens. So she survived a terminal diagnosis of a type of cancer called non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And she was very familiar with feng shui. She was very familiar with energy healing. She was very familiar with plants and animals and very connected with them. And there were all these weeds growing in my yard. And what she said to me was, if I have this sense of peace and send love to that weed, one, it would come out easier as I pulled it. And two, it would come out from the root, which meant that it wouldn't recreate itself. And guess what? Whenever I maintained the focus of that, I could pull those weeds out from the root. When I didn't pay attention, I just pulled some of the stubs out, which meant that it was harder to get the weed out at that point, and it was still going to recreate itself. So imagine the difference of all the ways you could start to explore in your life, how you can recreate as you're creating, so that we're creating positive impact as we go and not destroying what doesn't want to be destroyed, what can cause harm in the process of that destruction. How do we be in the greatest sense of harmony in that flow and maintain a consciousness to share that love outward? Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to like this video, to share it with others so they can use these ideas to create a more healthy planet and a healthier lifestyle. But also add your ideas as to how can we take better care of the planet. Thank you for tuning in.